Number 5.
And what may seem to many observers as a script from a Hollywood action movie, the South African underworld is a real occurrence that has inspired many books, documentaries, and films. The common term, captured, is often used to describe the severity of involvement of underworld figures in key sectors of national security, police, politicians, and even former sportsmen. From the involvement of the police commissioner and head of Interpol, the head of criminal intelligence, and the president himself. The underworld deals with international smuggling, including human trafficking, weapons, cigarettes, and drugs. The private security industry is another field that fueled rivalries as companies that provide security for nightclubs around the country clashed with each other over the control of nightclubs in inner cities.
The men face 1 count of intimidation and 8 of extortion relating to the alleged takeover of security at the Grand Africa Cafe and Beach last year. The investigating officer, Cyril Beeka, today also said that Modack and Krejcir would be charged in connection with the murder of a bouncer at Cubana in Greenpoint. He's testified that bail should be denied as both Modack and Krejcir are flight risks and would likely evade trial. But counsel for Modack says the state will not be able to convict his client on any intimidation charge. Advocate Edwin Grobler played a recorded conversation between Modack and the manager of the Grand Africa Cafe and Beach, which he said shakes the state's case. Krejcir conceded that there were no threats made in the call. The application is set to continue tomorrow.
South Africa has been dubbed the refuge for the world's most wanted criminals, as it is fairly easy for known criminals to attain citizenship through bribes of top politicians, government ministers, and the police. These criminals do not come over the southern tip of Africa to retire, but to continue their deeds, and even excel more than where they started, as they have all the assistance and support of corrupt key figures in the government. The democratic elections of 1994 saw South Africa being welcomed back into the international stage and moving away from its isolated past. This integration into the global arena also brought the country its fair share of international crime syndicates. The complexity of operations of these underworld figures is so intense that the National Prosecuting Authority can take almost half a decade to link anyone to any crimes for a successful prosecution, and often these cases remain unsolved, and life has to continue with questions remaining unanswered.
And my friend said, well, how do you know I phoned O'Sullivan so many times on that day? Krejcir, in front of a colonel in the police, says, listen, I've got his phone records. I've got friends in the police, I can get anything I want.
Number 4.
Brett Kebble. Roger Brett Kebble was a mining magnate born in Springs, east of Johannesburg. He became involved with the sale by Anglo-American of its JCI gold assets to Mzi Godfrey Khumalo in 1995 and had close ties to the ruling party, the African National Congress. In 2003 he established the Kebble Awards, where he showcased established artists and helped the lesser-known artists to rub shoulders with his fortunate and wealthy counterparts. The awards were cancelled after his death, and in 2009, his art collection was sold at a whopping 53.9 million rands. In 2005, he was deposed from the companies he ran, Western Areas, JCI, and Rand Gold and Exploration. This was after investors and stakeholders became concerned when 2 billion worth of Rand Gold Resources shares vanished and could not be accounted for. This resulted in the companies being suspended by the Johannesburg stock exchanges. After his death, an autopsy revealed that he was shot using a rare type of bullet which has low velocity and is often used by bodyguards and security operatives. The bullet requires a specially adapted firearm, and the purpose of this kind of ammunition is to ensure that the bullet stops after hitting its target and does not pierce through and cause accidental casualties because of its charge. The investigation into his death led to massive drugs overhaul and international syndicates involving the head of Interpol, Jackie Selebi, who was later charged with corruption and faced 15 years in prison. Glenn Agliotti was arrested as the prime suspect in the murder, but he denied any involvement and said the NPA only threatened him with an arrest so that he could be a state witness in the corruption trial of former head of Interpol, Jackie Selebi. Kebble's body was found slumped in his Mercedes-Benz S600 in what seems like a pro-assassination, where 7 shots were pumped into his body at such a close range that he had gunpowder burns on his neck. It was later discovered that he had massive debts and owed South African Revenue Services 250 million rands. His ties with the ruling black elite became apparent when his coffin was carried by black politicians in what seemed like a national hero send-off. He was carried by Dolly Tambo, son of African National Congress stalwart Oliver Tambo, a Sapahid who was the minister in the presidency. Kebble's head of security, Nassif was arrested for insurance scam after he ordered Kebble's Mercedes-Benz to be dropped from a forklifter in order to support a 500,000 rand claim. Brett Kebble was later found to have orchestrated his own murder, and his housekeeper stated in court that he was very depressed in the months leading to his death. He also sold his house and retrenched all his workers. He cleaned the house and was often collecting documents for shredding. He allegedly also had a physical fight with his father and drank heavily. His father also died in a suicide, where he was found with a gunshot wound on his head. Their scenes of death looked eerily similar. The housekeeper also stated he overheard Mr. Agliotti and John Stratton, Kebble's business associate, asking Brett to pay 15 million rands for something that he needed Mr. Jackie Celebi to do for him. After intense investigations, Mickey Schultz was found guilty of being the trigger man behind the shooting. Mickey, a former boxer, nightclub bouncer and assassin, has close ties with the bosses in the criminal underworld including Glenn Agliotti, Cyril Beeka, Angelo Agrizzi and Nafiz Modack. Mickey Schultz was once banned from the High Court in Pretoria after threatening Amy Pistorius, the sister of former double amputee Paralympian Oscar Pistorius. Schultz sat in the front of the public gallery during Oscar's trial, and his sister asked them to be removed as she did not want the men to be associated with his family. Schultz then allegedly got angry and told her that her family does not own the courtroom. Mickey Schultz, Faisal Smith and Michael McGuck said they committed the murder because Brett Kebble promised them an amount of 2 million rands, and they have also starred in a docu-drama, How to Get Away with Murder, where they reenact the killing on camera.
The allegations you were trying to intimidate them, what do you say?
They kept staring at us. They're staring at us. I don't even know I was in the row with them. The second time I've come out from school, my friend Jared, as I said. And when we came down and we sat down there, I never knew I was in the same line as.
Mickey Schultz told the court that the universe conspired against the killing of Brett Kebble as unforeseen incidents stood in their way. He claimed a gun jammed twice, and he was called twice by the wife of Kebble's head of security Nassif and Agliotti to call off the shooting. On the day of the shooting their car broke down due to overheating, and they had to call off the shooting. On the third attempt they flashed their lights at Mr. Kebble and he pulled over. When their windows were aligned, Mr. Kebble kept his arms on the steering wheel, but lifted his right shoulder up in an attempt to block or protect his neck and head. The gun jammed once more and Mickey told Faisal to drive away. They drove around the block, while he loaded new round of bullets. Brett Kebble pulled over next to them with a disappointed look on his face. Mickey pulled the trigger this time and the gun fired, and he kept firing as he was instructed by his head of security that he must not suffer, but die a quick death.
Kebble was found dead in his vehicle on an off-ramp of the M1 in Johannesburg in 2005. At the time, Kebble was accused of embezzling millions of rands worth of shares through his mining company, JCI Consolidated Mines. The NPA has previously indicated that Kebble's murder was in fact an assisted suicide, but this case should determine the matter once and for all.
Number 3.
Lolly Jackson. Emmanuel Jackson was also known as Lolly or the King of Teas, was a nightclub owner who owned a chain of strip clubs known as Teasers. He grew up in Congo and South Africa, and in his biography he described himself as a man who is not afraid of taking risks and a diverse person. He started his business ventures as a paving specialist and soon onto the Teasers empire, which saw him generate millions of rands and attracting lots of attention the club scene. His massive billboard adverts of his clubs, often depicting half-naked women, caused a stir amongst the public, and he was also caught driving at 249 km/h with his Lamborghini in 2005. He also appeared in court in 2008 over immigration contravention and also went to Randburg Magistrates Court for extortion, kidnapping, intimidation and crime and injury. Despite all the negative press around him, he pleaded his innocence and regarded himself as a good oak. A month before his death, he is said to have known of a 100,000 rand payment made to George Smith in order to kill him. Jackson once sent a letter to a newspaper which he said was from a Greek businessman, Michael Kalimnios, who paid Smith to execute him. Jackson said the Greek businessman wanted Smith to claim that he was paid by himself to kill Kalimnios. Kalimnios called the statement a pack of lies. The feud between the two men was apparently started by a relationship Kalimnios had with one of Jackson's lap dancers, a Ukrainian woman by the name of Yulia Mishovska. Jackson demanded a 50,000 rand repayment to cover his expenses for getting the woman a work permit and visa in South Africa. The couple instead went to get a protection order against Jackson and proceeded to sue him for 5 million rands for threats and defamation of character. Jackson counter-sued them. George Smith said he was approached by Kalinios at a Greek club in Linksfield. Smith said he was offered money in order to lie on a statement to the police and claimed he was offered money by Jackson in order to kill Kalinios. He then placed the money in cash on the table where they were sitting. Smith refused to take the money and claims Kalinios said he will pay the same price Loli will pay, which he said in Greek.
Luka has always maintained his innocence, but claims to know who pulled the trigger. One theory is that Jackson was approached to give evidence against Czech fugitive Rodovan Krejcir. At the time, he was being investigated in connection with a multi-million rand money laundering scheme. It's believed Jackson may have been killed to keep him silent. This and other theories will be tested when Luka finally has his day in court.
Loli Jackson was gunned down on 3 May 2010, and it took 4 years for the police to charge anyone with his murder. In 2014, Cypriot George Lauka, who was found to be using a fake surname, Smith, was charged with the murder of Loli Jackson, but he denied being the one who killed him, and claimed that Jackson was killed by Czech crime boss Rodovan Krejcir. George Lauka died the following year in prison after complications caused by lung cancer. Lauka fled to Cyprus after the murder of Jackson and was extradited after 2 years in his country. George Lauka's statements all claim that Rodovan Krejcir is the killer, and several applications to have him released on medical parole were denied after the state argued that he would never hand himself over, even if his health improved and his past behavior made him a flight risk.
No, I don't believe he shot Loli Jackson. I have my own theory about what happened that night, and that theory does not include George Luka pulling the trigger. I believe he was present, and I believe others were present. I know for a fact that Cyril Beeka was there, and so was General Mabasa. So I think what we'd like now is to hear firsthand from the horse's mouth as to exactly what did transpire that night. Nobody knew that George Smith was actually George Luka, but George Luka at that time was masquerading as George Smith, and he had an ID book. I've got a copy of the ID book, and he was allegedly a South African, but I mean, the minute he opens his mouth, you know he's not a South African.
Number 2.
Cyril Beeka, another victim of the Cape Town underworld operations, was Cyril Beeka. Beeka died in a hail of bullets after 2 men on a motorcycle drove beside his silver BMW and opened fire. Beeka also had links to Loli Jackson and had a conversation with the prime suspect in Jackson's death on the night of the murder. Meanwhile, the Czech government informed the South African government that their citizen, Rodovan Krejcir, had connections to the underworld syndicates and is linked to the murders that have been taking place. The police raided Krejcir's apartment, where they found what was suspected to be a hit list with Cyril Beeka's name on the top. A witness to the murder, Leon Davids, was also shot dead. Before his murder in 2011, Cyril Beeka is said to have controlled virtually all of Cape Town's nightclub security operations. Beeka's driver at the time of the shooting was a Serbian known as Dobrisav Gavric. Gavric is wanted in his home country for 3 counts of murder, and the Serbian government has been applying for his extradition in connection with the murders committed in 2006. Beeka's operations were shaped by intimidation and violence, and the control of nightclub security guarantees the control of illicit substances that are sold at the clubs. Beeka was suspected to be connected to Rashid Staghi of the Hard Livings gang and Vito Palazzolo, an Italian businessman who was based in Cape Town who was also a high-ranking member of the criminal organization Cosa Nostra. The last person Beeka visited before his death was Jerem Boyson, also known as Donkey. Jerem, who is the leader of the gang Sexy Boys, was also fingered as a suspect in the murder of Beeka. After Beeka's murder, nightclub security was dominated by Jerem, Mark Liffman and Andre Nod. Nafiz Modack, who was also close to Beeka, also rose into the arena as an underworld figure, and has joined forces with Jerem's brother Colin Boyson after having a fallout with Jerem. Another gang, the Terrible Joesters, were also suspected to be involved in the killing of Beeka and Leon David. Beeka had close ties to the African National Congress, and was also an informer for MK, the armed wing of the African National Congress.
Why does your name keep popping up? You've been linked to all of these crimes. The media is linking you to 12 murders. Why does your name keep coming up in association with these murders?
It's become from the speculation of the media and these rumors, gossips from the people like Sullivan, and unreasonable informations, what the people fabricate stories.
So do you think it's unfair that the media is labeling you a gangster and a mafia boss? Are you that?
No, I am not.
What are you?
I am the family man who is trying to enjoy his life in the country I love and trying to help everybody. That's all.
Should the people there fear you? Should South Africans fear you?
Of course not. I am every day on public. I don't know why they would fear me. There's no reason.
Should they be worried for their safety?
Of course not. Do I look like evil? Or I done nothing wrong in my life.
Number 1.
Mark Bachelor. Mark Bachelor was a South African professional footballer who played as a striker for numerous teams including Kaizer Chiefs, Orlando Pirates and Mamelodi Sundowns. He won several major trophies with Orlando Pirates, including Africa Cup of Champions in 1995. After retiring from football in 2003, he worked as a television pundit, but was later fired from his job after a fight in a restaurant. In 2014, he was a witness in the trial of Oscar Pistorius, and after losing his job as a sports analyst in 2007, his life had apparently taken a turn to the worst. Mark Bachelor was killed when gunmen on a motorcycle sprayed his BMW with bullets and killing him instantly. After losing his job, he ran into financial difficulties and started doing away with people he was once close with, including his own family. Mark became friends with very shady characters, and during his funeral, his once close friend Mark Williams said he once told Mark that he did not like his new friends who were all tattooed. During his shooting, Mark apparently tried shielding his gardener, and his dog was also hit. Mark apparently made enemies through his debt collection company, including those in the Underworld, and before his death, he and a friend were apparently registering a security company that offers protection services for nightclubs. Mark Bachelor's death had proven that he had links to an international criminal syndicate. His links to gangs operating in Johannesburg has been well documented. He has also been linked to a second-hand tractor that was imported to Australia from South Africa. The tractor had a stash of cocaine worth 1.4 billion rands. Authorities were also investigating his disagreement with an Israeli businessman over a 3.5 million debt which Bachelor had collected, but apparently never handed over. His killing seemed to have been involved with the Serbian gangs who operate in Johannesburg, for the way he was killed was a trademark style of the Eastern European preferred method of execution.
The 49-year-old powerfully built striker also had a short spell at KV Oostende in Belgium. Bachelor started his professional career as a striker, but was converted to a defender late in his career. He was part of the historic Pirates team that won the 1995 CAF Champions Cup, as well as the Super Cup the following year. Bachelor also played for Morocco Swallows, Bidvest Wits and Supersport United.
Two men accosted Mark Bachelor outside the gate of his Olivedale home here in Johannesburg and fired several shots at his car, killing him instantly. Bachelor was driving with his gardener who escaped a hail of bullets. Police say the assassination happened shortly before 7 p.m. and police and forensic pathologists remained on scene for several hours into the night. Both entrances to the street were cordoned off to keep the media away. Bachelor was one of a very few players who played for both Soweto Giants, Kaizer Chiefs and Orlando Pirates. He was also a prominent figure and witness in the murder trial of jailed Paralympian Oscar Pistorius. Bachelor testified about the temper of Oscar Pistorius, who had accused the soccer star of having a romantic relationship with his then-girlfriend Riva Steenkamp, while police say the motive for Bachelor's killing is not yet known.
For more content like this, please like and subscribe to our channel in South Africa. Thanks for watching this video.